In 2020, where can you find truth? Is the printed word honest? And are newspapers as reliable as they once were?
Paper, mister?
And what about broadcast networks? Here you will find many different opinions. It's not always easy to know who and what to believe. Even our leaders make charges about lies and offer counterclaims of fake news. It seems that no one can be trusted. You'd expect to find honesty from Christians and the church. So what about John Macarthur, pastor, teacher, author and broadcaster, the moral voice of Middle America? How does he stand up to the test?
We're the original protesters. We go back 500 years to the Protestant Reformation. We're still protesting lies and deception for the sake of the truth.
Sounds noble, doesn't it? But for the sake of truth, you cannot use lies and deception of your own. MacArthur's commentary relating to the coronavirus pandemic is anything but reliable. So let's look at some of the things he has said and claimed.
We've all been suspicious of the fact that we've been meeting together now for weeks and weeks and weeks. We don't know anyone who's ill. Nobody in our congregation has ever been to the hospital with this.
One couple in our church in the Spanish ministry who actually got the coronavirus. But that couple, and not an older couple either, wound up in the hospital because it was such a virulent experience for them. But we had Shepherd's Conference, and post-Shepherd's Conference, there was a 90-year-old pastor, a Russian pastor from Washington, who it was discovered was ill and died, and they thought it was the coronavirus, and it turned out to be the coronavirus.
He doesn't sound very honest, does he? And here's more misinformation from August.
A report came out this week, and for the first time, we heard the truth.
This is a report on comorbidities. It's not new information. The CDC have regularly updated this throughout the pandemic, and it has been readily available.
6% of the deaths that have occurred can be directly attributable to COVID. 94% cannot.
Why is this so hard to understand? Let me explain. In 6% of deaths, COVID is the only entry on the death certificate. For the remaining 94%, additional information is recorded. Often this describes the chain of events leading to death, or it may list additional complications that arose from the original COVID infection. All of these possibilities can lead to a recorded COVID death. Other death certificates may list general health problems the patient had. Perhaps diabetes or obesity. However, the primary cause of death was COVID. Not too many hamburgers or low blood sugar. In fact, in 92% of all deaths, COVID is mentioned as the underlying cause. The remaining 8% were COVID positive, but may have died from other causes, perhaps terminal cancer, a heart attack, or even a road traffic accident. Of course, you could argue that these cases should have been recorded separately, as these people would have died, with or without COVID anyway. Now handing back to MacArthur.
There is no pandemic.
From the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Definition of a pandemic. An outbreak of a disease that occurs over a wide geographic area, such as multiple countries or continents, and typically affects a significant proportion of the population.
That does not qualify as a pandemic. By pandemic definition, you have to have 1 to 3% of the population dying.
I'm sorry, but that is completely wrong. The term pandemic describes the geographical spread of a disease, not its lethality. MacArthur seems to be rather muddled on this. It is true that in the flu pandemic of 1918 to 20, 1 to 3% of the global population died. However, in the swine flu pandemic of 2009, the United States only recorded around 12,500 deaths.
There is 1 in 1/100% of the population of California, 40 million people, who have COVID.
This is one of MacArthur's favorite quotes. Let's check the credibility of the claim with some ballpark math. On September 16, California was averaging 3,500 new cases each day. However, daily counts are a fraction of all current cases. Incubation averages 5 days, and symptoms last from a few days to several weeks. But let's say the average case has COVID for 10 days, that would give a figure of 35,000 confirmed cases active on the 16th of September. Yet even this will be too low. Random sampling, by the CDC, suggests that routine testing only picks up 1 in 6 to 1 in 10 cases. Therefore, the true number of Californian cases on the 16th of September could be 200 to 350,000. To verify this, I checked the Worldometer website. Their estimate is over 370,000 active cases for this date in California. And even if this is an overestimate, it does illustrate that Macarthur's claim is way off the mark.
You have a 99.999 chance to survive COVID. It's just not what they're saying it is.
That's because this is another bogus statistic. As of December 10th, there had been around 1.5 million confirmed cases and 20,600 deaths. If you genuinely had a 99.99% chance of survival, only 150 people would have died. And even if everyone in California had COVID, this would only produce 4,000 deaths. But Macarthur's claims get even more fanciful.
In our case, it was presented to the court that in California you have one chance in 19.1 million to die of COVID.
So according to Macarthur, with 40 million people, California should only see 2 COVID deaths, period. This is absurd. However, it's still not Macarthur's final word.
Under 70, you have 100% chance of survival.
So apparently, no one under 70 will ever die of COVID. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by the Thoughtful Sheep.